We have not had a new hyper-growth market in tech for about 12, 15 years.
Right.
Cloud computing and smartphones. Those were the last big ones. Big tech is no longer run by people who make technology. The people running these companies are thinking growth, growth, growth. How do we make more growth? Which means how do we make monopolies? How do we trap people in our systems? As a result, they don't really know what they're talking about. These are barely smart people. They're smart-ish. They're business smart rather than life smart. They don't know real people's problems, and they don't really care about solving them outside of how much that involves hawking something to them.
Hello and welcome to Planet Critical, the podcast for a world in crisis. My name is Rachel Donald. I'm a climate corruption journalist and your host. Every week I interview experts who are battling to save our planet. My guests are scientists, politicians, academics, journalists, and activists. They explain the complexities of the energy, economic, political, and cultural crises we face today, revealing what's really going on and what they think needs to be done. These are the stories of the big picture. Go to planetcritical.com to learn more and subscribe. My guest this week is Ed Zitron. Ed is the CEO of the tech PR company EasyPR. He's the host of the Better Offline podcast, and he also produces the newsletter Where's Your Ed At? A wonderfully caustic commentary on the tech industry and the idiotic myths surrounding some of the most powerful men in the world. And that's what Ed joins me to discuss today. The enshittification of tech. How things are getting worse, why they're getting worse, who's in charge, who's not in charge, who's got ideas, who's pretending to have ideas, who's got no ideas, how these men build up their images, the parasitic, mutually beneficial relationship with tech media, which fails to hold these people to account, and, of course, AI. What it actually is, what it actually does, and why it's actually, as Ed puts it, bullshit. This episode has a really fun flavor and a rapid tone. So strap in as we penetrate deeply into the minds and worlds of Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, who it turns out can easily be portrayed as some of the richest headless chickens in the world. I hope you all enjoy the episode. If you do, please share it far and wide. And if you're loving the show, become a patron on Patreon or support Planet Critical with a paid subscription at planetcritical.com. By signing up, you'll get the Planet Critical newsletter inspired by each episode delivered straight to your inbox every week. You'll also have access to the wonderful Planet Critical community who are full of inspiring thoughts, ideas, critiques, and determination. The links are in the description box below. I'm so grateful to everyone who chooses to support the project. I'm a vehement believer in ad-free and open access content, so Planet Critical wouldn't exist without the direct support of the amazing community. Thank you so much to all of you who believe in Planet Critical and keep the project going every week. Ed, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
A pleasure to be here.
My very first question for you is, why is the world in crisis?
So I have a grander theory with this, which some people do not like, which is I actually think outside of everything political, everything you're looking at with Trump, with Elon Musk and all that, there is a much wider problem, which is almost every experience that we have interacting with the digital world is screwed. It's just growth hacked. Everything is built to make you do things rather than provide you with a service. Some exceptions, but a great many things we use every day. Pretty much every social media platform, Blue Sky is an exception there. Even your emails, the amount of spam we get is insane. And what by spam, I don't even necessarily mean just people spamming you. I mean, you gave your email address to a clothing company 6 years ago. They email you every 3 days or possibly multiple times a day. Our apps, every single app you install will give you some kind of notification. A lot of the free apps on the App Store are actually full of microtransactions. Everything is gated. Everything is slow. Go and buy a $200, $300 a pound laptop and see what the experience is, because it is full of pop-ups, it's full of extra services being sold. And then we go on our various entertainment or social network things, and we're just pounded by algorithmic stuff. And I know that's kind of trite. People say, oh, people have been saying algorithms are bad for a while, but they're just part of a larger subset of problems where everything is mangled. And the big mistake a lot of people have is that they say, well, that's just the internet, that's just the digital world. What are you flipping talking about? That's our world is the digital world now. Do you go to work? Is it the Flintstones? Is there a dinosaur that you use to do your work? No, you use a computer, you use a phone. How do you talk to your workmates? Usually over Slack or Microsoft Teams. Everything is digital now, and everything's kind of just fucked.
So the world is in crisis because the digital world is fucked. And
yes,
who
pretty much.
fucked it?
And that's the other thing that people don't like. It's really comfortable to say, and then there was a big strategy where Mark Zuckerberg and Sundar Pichai and Satya Nadella, they all got together and they all made a big plan. They were going to do this to us to make us make money. No. Pretty much every big tech company has been focused on growth at all costs for about 20 years. What this means is every decision they've made is to either keep customers on the service or keep the customer on the service doing more things that would make them happy, with possibly at some point providing them a service. What this means in practice, Microsoft's a good example, is you'll look at the Microsoft 365 services, which is like Word, Teams, and a bunch of other stuff. If that's within your business, their job is to make sure you never leave. It's not to make sure you're happy. Happy enough, sure, but to make sure you don't go anywhere. And the problem is that everyone has been doing this while also walling their gardens as much as possible. So instead of it being a grand conspiracy to drive us all insane, it's just a bunch of people doing extremely selfish things to make you use their services more. Look at Duolingo. Duolingo nags you with that horrible owl, that horrible creature. It bothers you every day. And it's cute, and they write articles about how nice that is. But at the same time, you're being harassed by your language app. You have an Instagram notification that pops up that pushes you towards Threads, a network where everything is discordant because everything's pushed by an algorithm. But don't worry, Mark Zuckerberg might offer you the chance to see the people you're actually looking for. Everything's kind of like this. Everything is built on this selfish chaos focused on growth. As a result, everything is worse in a very chaotic and upsetting way. And I sound a bit dramatic. People are like, oh, you're just being a cynic. But really, take a look at everything you do online these days. Use a mobile website sometime. You get like a giant pop-up, ask for your email, or it'll tell you to log in despite the fact you swear you logged in yesterday. Everything's crazy. Everything doesn't match. And when you build an internet and a tech industry on the idea that everything is your world and nothing really interoperates, that's why everything feels so off. If there was a real conspiracy, everything would connect together and they would make it work. No. The people have fallen asleep at the wheel. It ain't great.
That's interesting. I don't think any listeners of this podcast will think you're being dramatic, because this is, a particular focus on tech that we also see the patterns of everywhere else. I mean, economic growth at no matter the cost to people and to the environment, and despite the fact that economic growth is not driving development anymore, certainly in the developed world, but flooding wealth to the top.
That's not what it's for. It's for economic sprawl.
Economic sprawl. Can you say more about that?
It's it's growth everywhere. Everything must be bigger. Everything must be more. Number must go up everywhere. It isn't about there's no qualitative measurement of whether things are getting better. There is no even real consideration of what might do that, or what better could be, or whether people are happy or sad. There's just this sludge of everything everywhere. So in a just world, America would have Medicare for all. And you could even look at that from an extremely capitalist view. Healthy people live longer, buy more things, put more money into the economy grows. Except, well, right now we don't need to do that because growth is coming from these horrible companies that exist to con people with the con version of the health insurance market. There's no non-con version. I think health insurance is kind of evil in all forms. But it's, even with housing development, San Francisco for years has had problems with housing, but the local councils don't want to grow. They want to grow economically, but they don't want to have more housing because, well, that would mean there'd be an uncontrollable amount of people they don't like that might do it. Again, this is all so chaotic. None of this is a consistent ideology. None of this is a consistent move to do anything. It's just more. Economy go up, number go up, everything go up. As long as that thing isn't people's happiness.
Or immigrants.
Or immigrants or people of color or LGBTQ. You'd think a people being willing to be who they are would be a good thing. It would increase growth. They might even buy more things. No. We can't possibly. We couldn't possibly have more people unless it's people we like. It's, as you can tell, it's a horrifying world? Well, you talk about this all the time.
I would be really interested to know, so many things, but I think I want to first pick your brains on like, why is it that people really believe that these Silicon Valley CEOs slash heroic figures who are heroes despite doing very little good, why is it that people think of them that way when their products are getting worse? They are wrapped up in kind of government subsidies. They are getting sort of facing legal action suits all the time, whether it's, introducing young kids to eating disorders or Elon Musk and his numerous legal suits that are currently being brought against him. Where does this myth of the hero come from? And who is propagating it so that these men can get away with whatever they want?
So it's a few things. First of all, starting in about 2011, you saw a growth of a kind of a narrative around tech people, that they were different from your regular business people. They were innovators. They were doing something different. The media did this. Everyone in the tech media up until about 2015 was effectively some kind of cheerleader, which isn't to say any of them were wrong. I used to believe that these people were good and just weird and damaged creatures. Really, the death of Steve Jobs changed things a bit, but Steve Jobs, horrible piece of shit. Real horrible deadbeat dad, had to be sued by the California AG to pay child support. Horrible man. But he sort of invented the iPhone. Someone else actually did the inventing, but he brought it to market. The general view of the tech people is just different, and the media has always propped them up in that way because, there's a few different reasons, but one of them is it's just much more comfortable to look at the world that way. We can kind of push aside the CEO of the Home Depot or CEO of GE, like they're business people. They're just empty shells that raise money. But when people are inventing things, ooh, that's special. We couldn't possibly hold them to like moral or social norms. We must give them a pass because that only way that we get genius is through the troubled nature of the human brain, the white guy being tortured with his many ideas that even when you think about it for 2 seconds, he didn't really come up with them. Someone else came up with them. He's just the CEO and he is just the person making the money. But I think it comes back to this thing where we as a society, in particular American society, have a lot of trouble dealing with the concept of someone who's very rich. We don't want to think too hard about it because when you do, it's like, wow, I will never have that. No one I know will ever have that. And by them having that, millions of people must not have that.
Right.
So we lionize them. We say that these people are special, that they're geniuses, that they have something in them that we do not, other than $1 billion. And the media has really stuck to this narrative for a long time, except reality has come and really messed that up. However, Elon Musk has been a piece of shit for a while. Back 2017, 2018, Aaron Bieber, a science journalist, was harassed by his fans at his behest. Didn't see many people in the tech media stand up, but then again, Kylie Roberson from The Verge was harassed by Sam Altman the other day. No one fucking stood up for her either. There is an allegiance problem here. There is an allegiance problem that people believe, I think, on some level, that if these people don't create the future, no one will, when it's actually the opposite. By giving these people oxygen, literally and figuratively, we allow them to dictate the terms of how the future is built. And by doing that, we end up with the crap we have right now.
Let's, I find that really, really interesting. And I know that you've followed in particular that tech journalist who, wasn't it this really famous woman and she released her own
Kara Swisher.
Right, please have a bash, because I found that really interesting what you were saying. It really showed the revolting door, essentially, between top click journalists and top sector leaders.
Well, Kara's interesting. So Swisher has been around for decades now, and her whole thing was that she was the one journalist who asked the tough questions. She had Mark Zuckerberg on stage, and he got so hot from her questions that he took off his hoodie. Now, any theater people actually watching this, you should know that stage lights were quite close to him. It was very hot. He had a hoodie on. And the question was about privacy, and it had a logo inside that made her ask a question. She got to pretend that she asked Mark Zuckerberg something difficult and dined out on that. Her whole thing was she'd ask these difficult questions and get these scoops while being friends with these people, while having dinner with them, while feeding them things and they fed her things. And then as recently as 2022, Kara was saying that Elon Musk was tough to pin down, that you just couldn't understand. You couldn't judge him from his tweets. She turned on him. She will claim it's because he did something wrong. He called her an asshole. That's why she stopped speaking with him. And Kara released this book, Burn Book. Burn Book is about how tech bros ruined Silicon Valley. Now, who wrote about the tech bros, who interviewed them on stage, who platformed them, who talked about their great deeds? No need to worry about that. No, don't worry about it. It was her. It was her every time, and people she trained. Then on her book tour, she got interviewed by people. She got interviewed by Sam Altman and Reid Hoffman, two subjects of her book. And that's the thing. That's who Kara is. And it's so strange. Like, it's very much an American phenomenon, because I don't think you could pull this off in England, at least. It's a little more adversarial over there. Here, it's a little more glad-handly. And Kara isn't the only one. She's the worst of them by far, and now she's running off into the sunset with a multi-billion-dollar advance. But she has been the leading person in tech, and I mean leading derisively. There are plenty of great tech journalists actually asking hard questions, but it's hard to make them ask them on stage. The access journalism field is so large here. It's despicable, and it's letting real people down.
I am always amazed by conversations I have with people who don't spend their entire days on the internet like you and I reading articles.
What's that like?
And the average person's sort of opinion of Elon Musk, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, is that he's a genius. He's this great guy. He's an environmental warrior. He's going to figure out the energy problem. He's going to figure out the transport problem. And he's going to do great things now that he's in bed with Trump. Admittedly, that's more to the right, say, on the scale of average. But people really, really like him. And they also have this impression of him as being like slightly weird, slightly tortured, slightly left behind by everyone. And aren't we just really lucky that his genius sort of shone through? And I'm like, he hasn't invented anything. I mean, he's not done anything his entire life. Yeah, right? Con. Please, go on.
So, Elon's interesting because right now, I have been writing about him for a minute. There are people like Dana Hull, Laura Kolodny who have been doing so for over a decade. He's always been like this. He's always been this kind of guy. But the problem is that there is no solidarity in the tech media, and thus no one really wanted to criticize him until it was too late. What should have happened was, this should have been years in the making. And I also, in my latest piece, I wrote about this and I put it in the pod as well. There's this fear of breaking objectivity within a lot of media, well, most media, but especially tech media. So what they should have been writing is stuff about him lying, saying Elon Musk, a liar, comma, rest of story. As a result, most people believe Elon Musk invented Tesla, Solar City, even though his cousin ran Solar City. They believe these things about him, and when you go to talk about him to them, they're like, oh, this is just woke media shit. This is just, you don't like him. You don't like to see a globular white boy winning. And what I found it actually takes is asking them what they know about Elon Musk. Don't get so aggressive telling them he's a bad guy. That won't work. You have to just ask them what they believe and say, well, he didn't actually invent Tesla. He actually was an early investor, and he definitely helped them scale, but he didn't invent Tesla. And, he has, like, a lot of children. And no, that's a good thing. Is it, though? He doesn't really see them. Trying to approach these people, I know it sounds weird to be kind. Doesn't, especially if they're particularly right-wingy. It's kind of hard, but when it comes to breaking the Elon Musk myth, you can't do it quite as aggressively. I do it on the show, but when I meet people, and I've met people similarly who are like this, and it takes kind of just letting them get there themselves. Explaining, well, Elon, this was done to him. That's not actually the case. And have literature, I know this sounds like deprogramming someone. It's because it is. Yeah. And you're not just deprogramming Elon's bullshit. You're deprogramming the stuff that's been in the media for years. You can find major media outlets that say that Elon Musk invented Tesla. Yeah. He gets credit for things he did not do. He gets credit for things he has yet to do. Mm-hmm. If you look, it was about a month ago, I think, when the robo-taxi event happened. The same publications that were talking about the damage that Elon Musk had created to the world were writing up, Elon Musk says robotaxis are coming, and wouldn't you know he's doing robots too? Not nary a mention of how stupidly obvious it was that this shit did not exist, that this was entirely done on a stage. And it sucks. It sucks that we have a multi-billionaire that you have to deprogram people about, like misinformation. But people like this have gone quite far through media manipulation. And Musk, he could have just done nothing. But he does the Trump-style reality distortion field, throw everything at the wall thing. And the truth is, people are scared to just say who he is. A truly cruel, self-involved, boring asshole who steals things or uses his leverage to consume more of the world. He has contributed a great deal to the electric vehicle market, and has now done enough societal damage that there are going to be people who do exactly what he does again and again until the media nuts up and actually calls them to account. Sam Altman is the next one. If we do not call Sam Altman what he is, a liar, a complete liar, a man who has lied with regularity and deliberate acts, then we will just have a second Musk. We'll have infinite Musks.
Exponential Musks. Before we get into those other Musks, I want to really drill down into what you think might happen now that Musk and Trump have teamed up. Why did it come out at the last minute, really, and why did not only he show his support, but really quite slavishly gave his entire month to the last leg of Trump's campaign? And what the hell is he going to do running the Department of Government Efficiency?
So, never ever try and interpret Musk in any kind of conspiratorial or all-powerful way. This man is, despite his resources, just another guy. He's just, this man carries within him more divorce energy than you will see in the average person, but he is ultimately a divorced uncle. As a result, he sits at home ruminating, taking whatever he takes, drinking whatever he drinks, just being like, oh, I'm so, they're the woke, they're very unfair. And he sees Trump, and he sees another guy who just babbles about how unfair people are. And also, Elon feels this grievance against all things fair, like anything that might have equality to it. And his grievances make him do things, except instead of, ordering DoorDash and going on Amazon and buying a bunch of shit he doesn't need, he buys a website. He spends $100 million. He has armies of lawyers that love retainer fees. He sends them a bunch of money. Go do this. It's kind of hodgepodge because he doesn't really give that much of a shit. He throws all of his money behind Trump because Trump is the same kind of oafish, half-assed ideologue, demagogue freak as him. And so, he does that. And it's very obvious at this point what Elon did helped. But what happened was people just didn't want to vote because it was a shitty election. I can't vote. Can't do it. Not legally able to. Doesn't mean I'm a felon. I'm an immigrant. Please don't arrest me. Department of Government Efficiency is also one of these great Elon Musk style ideas. You remember the Content Moderation Council he was going to set up on Twitter? That was zero effort and he never did it. You think he's really... What's going to happen is there's going to be a bunch of consultants who make an absolute arse ton of money. Something horrible is going to happen. They're going to cut some social services. But to do what he says he will do is so impractical and will involve laying off millions of people. That's not a good thing. When the jobs report, you number the new jobs in the hundreds of thousands. You don't dump 2 million people. He's going to gut some sort of department. But America is a deeply inefficient democracy, meaning that it will be tough to implement these things. And also, government is slow and boring. Elon Musk will get bored. Now, if he stays the course, this could be ruinous for America. We already have very thin social services. But him and Vivek are dumber than a box of rocks. They will do one big thing to make them feel. They'll do the department. They'll make the Department of Wives and make wives illegal. They'll do some weird shit that doesn't actually work, that has no legal authority. And then at that point, they will get bored. And also, some point, Trump and Elon are going to have an argument. Right. Trump hates Elon deep down. He likes the money, but Elon represents a kind of new money that Trump, who is older new money, really does not like. And also, he doesn't like Elon. Elon Elon is desperate, and Trump feasts on the desperate. I think Trump is horrible, just to be clear, but there's a very clear way. He's an old real estate guy. Tech guys are to them like the rat and the cockroach.
I hadn't quite thought about that angle. I was thinking that, eventually one of them is going to obviously want to be more in charge than the other. Neither like being told what to
probably the president will win.
I mean,
I'm just saying, I think the president of America will probably win, because I think that ultimately Musk is going to overextend his hand. He's going to make demands of Trump, and Trump will give him some stuff. There's going to be some real crony capitalism shit. It's going to be grim. It's going to be really good for people with money, and really, like a lot of money, and really bad for everyone else.
Yeah.
But the truth is that I think it's going to be a comedy of errors that's going to hurt people. I think America's going to be very dark for LGBTQ people, especially trans people and women.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see at scale how inefficient this ideology is and how messy it's going to be, especially because Trump is going to get bored of Elon, because Elon probably has his cell phone now. It's like at 2 a.m, like check out this, Mr. Trump, check out this meme, and it's a meme from 15 years ago. And Trump doesn't. He's like, "What's a meme? Don't know what a meme is. Look at this. What is this? Elon Musk won't stop sending me little Elon." But also, he's going to call him little Elon somewhere. Like, Trump can't help himself. He hates everyone. I think the only person he likes is Theo Von, and that was for 10 minutes. He was on this podcast with Theo Von. There was a 10-minute period where he seemed happy. Very strange.
This bodes well. It's nice to always find a way to laugh about the impending fucking
Otherwise you
doom.
cry.
I know, exactly. It's laugh or cry. Let's get into AI, Ed. We can begin with Sam Altman and the mythology surrounding this man. What it is that he's building, the fact that it's a private company. I'd really love you to spell it out for listeners. This hasn't been covered on the show before.
Okay, so Sam Altman has been in the Valley since about 2008. Maybe earlier, 2005. He was one. So there's this thing called Y Combinator, which is an incubator for tech startups. So they give you a little money, they give you the connections, they help you build it. Sam founded a company called Looped. He eventually sold it for $45 million. It was a failure. It was a location-based social network. Nevertheless, Sam Altman was able to charm Paul Graham, the head of Y Combinator at the time. Now, eventually this led to Sam becoming the head of Y Combinator himself. Now, should add a little detail in the middle there. During Looped, twice, senior people at the company went to the board and tried to get him fired. Sam Altman was not paying attention to the company. He at one point restaffed engineers from the company to work on a separate dating app. Never been able to find more information on it. Insane. Sam eventually, he eventually leaves Y Combinator, and it comes out that he was made to leave. He was fired, and then makes OpenAI in 2017, 2019, this kind of non-profit AI thing that kind of sounded like bullshit. But between these points, he's made friends with a lot of people in the media. He's very charming. He is quite unlike Elon Musk in that he's quite charming and easy to get along with. Never had the pleasure. Every video I've seen with him, he makes me think. I went to a private school in London, and I think this really changes my view of charming people very aggressively. I'll meet someone everyone says is charming, I'll be like, what are you up? No, it's much more subtle. You can just taste something's off. It's intentions. You're like, you want something. I can't work out what it is yet, but I will.
Yeah.
So OpenAI kind of potters around until about 2019. Microsoft gives them some money. 2022 rolls around and they put out this thing, ChatGPT. And I would buy the argument that they knew it would be big, and I would buy the argument that they had no goddamn idea. Either way, ChatGPT begins this AI revolution. What ChatGPT is generative AI, which is probabilistic models, transformer-based models that generate the next thing. This can be quite impressive at scale. The images they generate are effectively all guesswork. It's kind of cool they can do it. The problem is all the fact the training data requires you stealing. Ripping stuff off the internet, ripping stuff from social networks, ripping stuff from YouTube, though they have yet to claim whether they do that or not. These models in the idea themselves are not bad, but the problem is the training data requirements and the fact that, as you all know, the massive data centers they are building require thousands, tens of thousands of GPUs to generate, I don't know, Garfield in a bra, like whatever crap people are using it for. Now, OpenAI itself they've been promising they would build something called AGI, Average General Intelligence, which means a conscious AI that has the intelligence of a human. This is, and this is a technical term, bollocks. It is fan fiction. It does not exist. They have no proof they can do it. All they have been able to do is a more powerful generative AI, which means it can generate more nuanced stuff faster.
And I just want to add a point. When you say generative AI, you mean that also when it's writing, an essay, it's generating the next most likely word in a sentence.
So what it is you cram these things with training data and they build knowledge. They don't know anything. They build a corpus of generation that they can then say, okay, I'm writing the quick brown fox, so I write the quick brown, so probably fox is next. It's more like you'd say, write me a poem about this, and it will say, okay, based on that prompt and all of the things I've been trained on, that would be it. It's why you get weird things like 6 fingers on a hand, because it doesn't know what a hand looks like. It knows what the thing you have prompted it to say is. Now, you could even say, draw the right amount of fingers, and it will go, I don't know what a finger is. I know what tokens might have finger associated, but I don't know what a finger looks like or what a hand is or anything. I'm just generating. Now, at scale, you may think, why did we put billions of dollars into this? This doesn't sound like anything. This seems cool, but also environmentally destructive. All of the big tech companies have blown past their emissions targets. They wouldn't have just put all this money in there because they think it would turn into something they didn't know about, would they? And the answer is yes. That's exactly what happened. They crammed a bunch of... Microsoft is going to buy 1.8 million GPUs, billions of dollars worth.
What's a GPU?
By the end of... A GPU, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So, to make all of this bollocks work, you need to use something called a GPU, graphics processing unit. It's a bigger chip. We have a CPU, the central processing unit of every computer. Pretty much everyone. Every computer has one. And then the GPU is the graphics processor. You can get various versions, but that's all you need. To do generative AI, you have to get specialized GPUs sold by a company called NVIDIA. That's really as far as you need to go, but these things are expensive and they're power demanding and they burn hot. And they're running full tilt all the time. As a result, you have massive data centers that you have to custom build. You can't just throw these in a regular one. They put out too much heat. You need too many of them. So to do all of this quasi-useful stuff, you need this massive infrastructure, which is insane because they clearly don't know what they're doing with this, and they have no idea. And none of the products they're building are that useful because ultimately, this is a generative AI that you plug into something, and it does something called hallucinate. Now, hallucinations are when these models say something authoritatively that isn't true. Great example is, if you go on ChatGPT and ask it for a list of all the states with the letter R in it, you will get at least one that has no R in it. Now, that is a hallucination. Now, hallucinations are not all the time. The problem is we underestimate how smart even the dumbest human is. Most humans do not hallucinate just completely incorrect things. You may have also thought, maybe if you didn't, but it's worth thinking, this isn't artificial intelligence. And you'd be right. This is just a thing that generates other things. It can do so at scale. It can summarize meetings. It's pretty useful. The costs, however, financially, also all of these things are horribly unprofitable. OpenAI will lose $5 billion this year and more next year. And that's after revenue.
Wow.
So we just have it's all insane. It all drives me a little insane when I lay it out like that.
So why are people sort of throwing everything at it? All of the major tech companies are developing their own versions of AI. They all want their LLM model to be the main one in the world. If it doesn't really have that much to offer at the moment, and if the environmental and financial costs are so huge, A, why are they doing it? B, why is everybody letting them do it, including their backers? And C, why does everybody think that maybe it'll be one of these AIs that figures out how to sort the bloody world out?
Well, there's a much larger problem outside of AI, which is they've run out of ideas. We have not had a new hypergrowth market in tech for about 12, 15 years.
Right.
Cloud computing and smartphones. Those were the last big ones. Now, a little bit of this, by the way, is that whether or not they'd like to admit it, software is heavily dependent on hardware. And there's only so much you can do. There's only so small you can make things, and there's only so much you can do with power. We need to figure out new things to do and new ways to build things. That's the biggest issue. Also, big tech is no longer run by people who make technology. Sundar Pichai of Google, management consultant, former McKinsey. Satya Nadella, MBA, former product manager. Zuckerberg, you may think, wait, he's technical, right? He hasn't written a line of code since 2006. Tim Cook, management consultant, operations guy at Apple. I forget who even took over Oracle, but Oracle's been evil since the dawn of time. Point is, the people running these companies are thinking growth, growth, growth. How do we make more growth? Which means, how do we make monopolies? How do we trap people in our systems? As a result, they don't really know what they're talking about. These are barely smart people. They're smart-ish. They're business smart rather than life smart. They don't know real people's problems, and they don't really care about solving them outside of how much that involves hawking something to them. Where's this get to with AI? Well, when none of you have got any bloody ideas, you can only copy your friend's homework. Microsoft didn't expect ChatGPT to work. Well, they didn't even know it exists. It comes out, they go, we need to power Bing Chat. That's the entire reason all of this started. ChatGPT came out and they went, shit, we got to make sure that whatever this is in Bing Chat. We need as many GPUs as possible. This is the truth. This is what happened. Sundar Pichai sees this and goes, whoa, that seems like something. We should throw all the money at that. Mark Zuckerberg sees this and goes, well, I haven't had any ideas for a while. That's an idea. And Sam Altman's a great carnival barker who went around. He was on Mira Murati, the CTO at the time, was on The Daily Show. The media ate this shit up because it was possible to type a sentence in and get a few paragraphs. That was the entire thing. People were beguiled by this system, despite the fact that when you really looked at it, I felt the same way then as I do now. I'm like, why? Who gives a shit? Like, what? Fine. But because tech really hasn't had anywhere to grow for a while, well, this works, right? Why don't we all do this? This is going to do something, right? You may think, Ed, surely there's more depth than that. There is, but it's not very deep. It's just this way. It's, well, what if this generated code, which is probably one of the only useful things it does, as long as you don't use the code without reading it. Well, what if this generates images? Wouldn't that money? You know, artists, the classic money makers of the world, the people that make all the money. You know, the rich artists we all know. And hey, what about, this can replace SEO people, the other lucrative field. The people we know driving Bentleys and Rolls Royces, the SEO people and the artists. But wait, this could replace low-level data entry work. Yeah, all those guys in their Bentleys and Rolls Royces with their private jets filling in Excel spreadsheets. But again, there is actually a logic behind this, which is when you're the executive of a company like Microsoft, all you do is look at spreadsheets and emails. This must seem completely amazing. You don't have to read the 7 emails you've been ignoring. You have someone else read them, but now an AI could also read them for you. And the problem is, I think, is that they thought, wow, this is taking these big jumps. There was a jump from ChatGPT 3 to 3.5, or GPT-3, which is the model behind ChatGPT, and then GPT 3.5. There was a jump. It was quicker. It did more things, but the things it did were just more of the same. Nevertheless, all the tech companies went, oh, shit. If we made even more things happen, then imagine what would happen. And no one actually tried to imagine. No one was like, well, does this do anything? And there are people who've been saying it longer than me, but since earlier in the year, I've been saying, we're at peak AI. This is all it's going to do. But because of that phrase, AI, the media ate it up. They were like, oh, this is the future. AI is going to do this. AI is going to do this. Kind of like they did with the metaverse, kind of like they did with crypto. Something's big, so it's going to be big, right? Versus saying, hey, what does this do exactly? Now, I call out the Washington Post here because they've done actually a very good job of early and often being like, what is this? Shira Ovide, Jeffrey Fowler done a great job over there just saying like, I don't know what this is. This is kind of silly, but you're all talking about it, so we're going to explain. But just very clear, like, this isn't much. But then you get people from New York Times, Kevin Roose, being like, the Bing chat told me to leave my wife. And it's like a day-to-day. It's so obscene. But when the tech media is not ready, and the business media too, to say, okay, this much money can be wrong, you're left defenseless. And people are using this because they're told that it's the next best thing. I've yet to meet someone whose life has been measurably improved by it other than someone raising money off the back of it. And so if you, dear listener, have used this and gone, I don't know why this is cool, it's because it isn't.
Ed, these people in Silicon Valley are now effectively a tech oligarchy with their claws into our political institutions in the United States and also pretty far abroad. They wield a lot of power in Europe as well. And even though the ISDS, the Investor State Dispute Settlement Court, is normally for extractive industries, I have no doubt that one of the big tech companies has gone through that as well. If these people have no fucking idea what they're doing, if they have no plan, if they have no imagination, and if they don't really particularly understand how to run their own companies, what exactly are they trying to hijack, and what for, really? And what will the impact be through our democracies?
One correction. They know how to run their companies.
Right.
But what you may think running a company means is not the same as what they think. They think growth. I must show year-over-year growth. Any interference with infrastructure is to benefit that mission. It's to allow them to have more data centers so that they can throw more GPUs at something. Allowing them more weapons. Not necessarily, they're not sitting there, I believe, thinking, and then I will twist society to my whims, and then they will all bow down. No, they're just like, well, how do we make number go up? How do we make revenue go up? And there's so many people, there's like 100,000 people or something at Google and Microsoft. They're just these shambling, they're basically rogue states. We are in an era of corporate authoritarianism where these companies effectively see, I know what you mean as oligarchs, and I kind of see it, but it's easier to look at them as states within states.
All right.
Nationless states. Many people have various feelings about Matt Stoller, but when I had him on the pod,
who's that?
He talked about this. Matt Stoller is what's the term for him? He works for a non-profit and he talks about monopolies.
Okay.
He has also said some things about Josh Hawley and J.D. Vance that I fully disagree with, and I found out after the interview. That's why I'm cashing this so hard. But nevertheless, he's great on monopolies, and he made a really good point about how the corporate authoritarianism is what we're really seeing. It's the reaction. It's the fact that these are basically barely taxed blobs of citizenry with petty kings at the top who do things based on the vaguest missions. It comes down to more, though. And it always comes down to more. So you see everything they do, and it is evil. There are evil things happening. Don't get me wrong, they do evil things. But it's much more comfortable to look to the top and go, and Sundar Pichai is sitting there and going, and then we will do this for evil, versus money. What would growth look like? What would make me as a CEO feel good and look good to the markets? It explains a lot of what Elon does. If you look at Elon and think, what about this makes him feel good versus what's his big plan? That actually explains almost everything he's ever done. It's all about pressing button inside and growth. It's extremely thin, and it does get complex. All of the government interference is so that they can save money. It's so that they can do things without the annoying hand of laws and rules and societal norms. But it is not this conspiracy theory, because I don't actually think they'd be able to pull off a conspiracy. They haven't pulled off AI. You think if these dipshits can't pull off this, if they can't go, oh, we're burning $200 billion on nothing, this is stupid, we should stop. No, if they're not able to wake up to that, they're not working together in a grand, even PRISM, the whole thing where the metadata was being shared with the NSA, was a mess. It was such a mess. The whole thing, the fact it came out and it was like a PowerPoint as well. They had a PowerPoint for the conspiracy. You don't have a paraphrasing Stringer Bell from The Wire. Like, you taking notes at a criminal conspiracy. They had a PowerPoint. They probably did it in a room. Probably like 25 people in there. That's not how the Illuminati works. So, to be clear, this is not suggesting there's no harm. There's tons of harm. There's selfishness and cruelty, and they use money and leverage to push past things you and I can't. And it's frustrating because you see that. And when you think conspiracy, it's a little better because you're like, oh, at least they have a plan. No. They have plans.
Yeah.
They do have plans.
Yeah.
They have strategies. In pursuit of what? Who the hell knows? I don't think they do.
I'm a big fan of essentially the rhetoric that you've just posed, which is like disempowering these people. So taking them off the ledge of like supervillain and just reminding us all that they're very, very average people that
Emotionally
are just
disempowering, but they're powerful.
Well,
like there's
also,
no doubt there.
But I mean, also they do exist within their own systems. They also have to behave in certain ways, and they have to do certain goals. And typically the way of achieving those goals of, you know, like not exponential, but increasing growth year over year is very extractive. And it involves harming the most vulnerable in order to sort of take a bigger piece of the pie. So I'm a big fan of that. But I wonder if there's something here around like people normally think of conspiracies, whether it's like government conspiracies or tech conspiracies, as they want to control us.
Yes.
And even when like Roe versus Wade was overturned, the kind of resounding message was like, they want to control women's bodies. And I remember at the time being like, I don't know if that's the right terminology. I don't know if control is the goal here, or rather, I mean, I've got my own theories as to why you would want, you know, the female population reproducing more laborers, essentially. But it just seems to be like a lack of care and cutting the bottom line all the time, essentially. And especially if they can get these like, you know, unintelligent AI things to do the work where they don't have to pay people anymore to do it, like these kind of like menial, you know, data entry or whatever. They could just cut and keep insulating and making their world smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and having to deal less with all the shit they've made on the outside. That seems to be it. They don't really seem that interested in control. They seem that interested in leaving.
Even then, you've added so many layers of nuance. So I'm not an expert when it comes to Roe versus Wade. That was so ideal. It's this wretched conservative view that women are their property. I don't know if anyone's thinking that big, but I also am not a woman and cannot imagine being a woman in America and watching that happen. I just, it is perfectly fair to feel that way.
Sure.
And frankly, and I believe there are probably members of the government who feel that way, that women should be controlled. I think the overall strategy was entirely ideologically driven as a way of just it's a deeply it's like so unpopular as well. The voting bloc does not like the idea of banning abortion. And there are many Republican senators, I imagine, who might somewhat regret it at some point or have in the past. I think that it's ideology. Just, we should do this. I think, by the way, they definitely packed the courts with intention of doing this. I think that there was actually a plan there. Conspiracy, it was done in broad daylight. Not much of a conspiracy when they're literally saying we're going to do this. They've been saying for years, and the Democrats are like, they won't do it. Yeah, we're going to let you get power. Then let's say, oh, you did the thing you've been telling us for years. Shit, I didn't see that coming. Putting that aside, again, too many layers of nuance to these people. They think vaguely, oh, if we use AI replace worker, money come out. True. If that happened, these things are not reliable, and they never will be. That's not how these models are. On top of that, replace what workers? Like what? Again, we go back to the ultra rich we've been talking about. You know, artists and SEO people. The people that are really there are people who really are losing their jobs. Contractors, freelancers, they really are. I don't think anyone really sat down and thought, what is a job that a person does? Because if you did that even once and went, and now we have this software, you go, shit, this doesn't do that at all. This doesn't replace anyone. This replaces freelancers, art directors with much shittier versions. You're not going to get a good replacement. And we're going to replace data entry workers. Wow. Hey, haven't we already outsourced and automated a great deal of that already? Have we not already cut that to the bone? And the answer is we have. So they may think in a grand way, this could replace workers. In fact, I think that drives a lot of these evil people who love AI. I think that is behind them. But these people are not thinking about this very much, because if they were, they go, shit, we're not doing this. This doesn't do that at all. This is insanely expensive and does not even come close. So I think that the media between 2022 and now may have been excited for that idea, but not really thought about whether it was possible, because it so wasn't. You could see from the flipping beginning, it was right there. This thing does not do that. It's not autonomous either. It's not even AI. It's just a generator. Very interesting, like, not even that interesting. It's a generator. If it wasn't so ruinous and expensive and environmentally destructive, it might be kind of cool. But it is, so it isn't.
You've used the term evil a couple of times during this conversation.
Yeah.
If these guys don't have a big plan, but rather have lots of little plans around, extracting more growth, where does the evil thing come from? Is it because of like the second and third order effects of what they do?
It's an irresponsibility.
Right.
And it's also a selfishness. One can be evil without thinking, I am an evil person. In fact, there are many evil people who think they're very moral. These people are acting in evil ways and doing evil things. The things they are doing to the environment alone are evil. So yeah, I'm calling them that because what they're doing is evil. They could not be evil, but they all choose to be. And I feel like people get so shy with terms like that. They're like, oh, you can't go around calling people evil. Yes, you can. I just did it. I'll do it tomorrow. If they want to not be called evil, perhaps they should stop being evil. Perhaps they should stop ruining the environment. Perhaps they should stop burning billions of dollars in pursuit of what is clearly some sort of software that will replace human beings. And then going on to conferences and wanking off on stage about how this is the future when they know they're not building it. I fucking hate liars as well. And they know that this isn't going anywhere. They know already. If they had a big plan, they would show it. If they had a thing, they would show it. Nobody has a plan. And putting that aside, the grand plan even, I don't think anyone has a plan to make this profitable. Like when I say OpenAI is losing $5 billion a year, I mean that's after the $3.7 billion they made. And that's when they get their server costs discounted by Microsoft. It's just such waste. And it's all because they don't want to admit they don't have any other ideas. So yeah. Evil all the way. I wrote a thing called The Man Who Killed Google Search earlier in the year about a guy called Prabhagar Raghavan who has pretty much single-handedly led Google Search into the toilet and flushed it. And it was all because they wanted to grow queries. Evil man. Horrible man. Evil thing to do. I've said it, but it's like burning the Library of Alexandria in front of us. And these are evil acts. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, I grew up on the internet. I love the internet. I love being on the computer. It's how we met. It's how I met tons of my friends. And seeing what they're doing to the computer makes me angry.
How do people exit their, numerous closed systems? Because that is the feeling now on the internet, is like total enclosure and great difficulty in finding a different way of doing things. Because even I very briefly looked into my own web hosting recently and was like, fuck that. I don't even know how to. I've become so used to the convenience of enclosure that when I think about venturing out into the wilderness that I know would be best for me, probably, it's almost too much to bear.
It's because the value systems we're in are very easy and built for convenience. We like the crate. Google is easy to use. It's all free, even though they make so much more money than anyone should be making off of it. Leaving these closed systems is tough. I'm stuck with Google. I use Signal now. I use Signal and iMessage. I don't love using iMessage, but it's easy and also it's less harmful. I don't touch WhatsApp unless I'm in Europe. Even then, I feel like doing so through a tissue. It's a very greasy service. I'm pretty much off of Twitter now. I use it for distribution. Blue Sky's great. I barely use Instagram, and I use it a smidgen. I don't touch Facebook. You don't need to use these things. You really don't. If you look at them and you look at the quality of what you're getting, it isn't even a moral thing. People need to stop being like, oh, it's the wrong thing to work. No. Be the same kind of avaricious, selfish person as they are. How much are you actually getting out of these things? Yeah. Do you enjoy it? Or are you just there because you think you have to be? Instagram is probably going to be the hardest to drop for most people.
Why?
And the answer is just use it as a messaging platform like I do. Click through the stories. Click through them fast so they don't get much engagement. Duck in, duck out. The less time you spend on these services, the less profitable you are to them. The less things you do. Go in there with a mission. You're going to search for something on Google search. Prepare your search on a note beforehand. Go in. This is a way to make them less money. Delete what you can. Proton Mail, I hear, is good if you want to replace your email. Signal is great. I do love Signal.
Yeah.
Blue Sky's great. Use Blue Sky. Twitter is going to be dead in a year. It will still be around, but I don't know if I've used Twitter since nearly the beginning, since just after it was a website versus a text message service. 90,000 followers on there. Posting on there now feels weird.
Isn't it?
It feels like a somewhat weird reference, but it feels like a mall in Dallas, Texas, but I'm trying to think of a European version. Go to the Westfield in Shepherd's Bush on a quiet day, and it's really hot and humid outside. That's how Twitter feels now. If you're any Shepherd's Bush people or grow up, you'll understand what I mean. It's a ghost town, and that's because I actually think there's hope. Because if people can leave Twitter like this and go to another service, they'll do it again to Instagram, they'll do it again to Facebook.
Yeah.
Just even being aware of this stuff and tell people, tell your friends, tell your loved ones, let them know that this is how the world works. Because that's how things actually change. That's how people get away from these services and disempower them. It can feel a bit oppressive because it is, because they have so much money and they're worth so much, but they need you so much more than you need them.
That's such a great note to end on, I think, Ed. Thank you so much for this conversation. My final question for you.
My absolute pleasure.
Is who would you like to platform?
Molly White. Molly White is a tech critic. She's an incredible writer. She's a Wikipedia head. She writes the citations needed newsletter. I'm literally typing in, it's just mollywhite.net. She is one of the coolest people online. She is phenomenal and a sign that things can get better. Same goes with Cory Doctorow, who coined the phrase enshittification. Love you, Cory. Do not like saying it. Doesn't roll off the tongue. Molly and Cory are great examples of people doing the right thing who also really know their shit. I love them both.
Brilliant. Ed, thank you so much for your time today. This was great.
My pleasure.
If you want to learn more, I've put links to everything in the description box below. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new here and share the episode if you enjoyed it. To support the show, subscribe at planetcritical.com, where you can read the weekly newsletter. You can also become a Planet Critical patron. All links are in the description box below. As always, my deepest thanks to that community. Planet Critical wouldn't exist without your support. Thank you everyone for listening and for coming on this journey together.